Just want to greet everybody today that is watching, and this has actually happened because there are people that are really struggling with accounting, so I'd like to help them. A few of my friends and family have been saying they're having a hard time to understand how bookkeeping works and how accounting works, so I just want to help everybody out there, so you're gaining the benefit from this as well. Many years ago, when I was in my 20s, there was an awesome guy that was working in the same office as me, and I said to him, I don't understand, I don't grasp it, how does it work? That's before I started studying accounting. And he said, it all starts with the bank. So I hope I can help somebody here. There's many ways of learning bookkeeping, learning accounting, but if I have to help you, start with the bank. It all comes from the bank. Yes, there's other times that you're not going to pay with a check or with your cash or with your transfers from one bank to another, or you're not going to receive it as a receipt, but you might be getting it as a fixed asset, and you'll learn about that. I'm going to teach you about that. So we'll get into that later. Maybe you bought the company and you wanted to bring in something that was not already in your bank. So I will go into detail of that. That won't be here. I'm first going to teach you the basics of accounting. So just remember, when you start doing journals, you will then understand why I said you must understand the bank first. And then the journals is very easy to understand. From your bank, you will always have a debit side and you always will have a credit side. Okay, now you're saying to me, but Esther, this debit side here says debtors. Okay, this is a ledger on its own. Now, a lot of people get confused with this. So when you start working with debtors, they get confused with how does it work with a bank. So if I show you how it works with a bank, it's going to be so much simpler for you to understand accounting completely. This is just the basics. It's the start of it. If you don't understand the start of it, you're not going to understand how everything works together. And then when I was teaching at Northern Academy accounting, I would teach the students to do something. Now, when I was young, I used to be at high school and we did typing. So the teacher would drill it in our heads. You have to sit with your feet flat on the ground. Because if you sit with your feet flat on the ground, you are able to think better and you're focusing directly on your typewriter and you are not crossing your legs. Don't ever cross your legs. That's what she told us. And with accounting, I learned that by teaching the next person, I'm leaving a legacy. That's what I'm doing. I learned from very good people, so I want to pass it on to you. But you're not typing now, so your feet don't have to be flat on the ground. Your feet needs to be crossing over each other. So will you do that for me while you're watching? It's going to stay in your memory bank. Don't laugh at me. This is going to help you through it. Cross your legs over. You know, when you take your legs and you cross it over. Okay. While you're crossing your legs over, you will understand why I'm saying that is because in accounting, you have to cross the legs over. There's always a left-hand side, which is always the debit side. And there's always a right-hand side, which is your credit side. Remember that when you cross over your legs, if you had to straighten your legs, there is two sides, the debit side and the credit side, but there always is a crossover. Okay, now you can relax your legs. I'm sure you will remember, and I will bring it back up again sometime again. If we look at the bank, let's go down to the bank. The bank always has a debit side, and the debit side of the bank is where all the money comes in. It doesn't matter how the money comes in. So this is your input side, money coming in. You with me? Please take out a pen and paper and do this because when you do pictures, you remember things. Because your brain's not just one side. Your brain has an artistic side and it has the theory side. That's why a lot of you students and even people working don't understand accounting, because it's all theory most of the time. Only when you start to work with it don't you understand what you're doing, because you did theory, theory, theory. Now you get to the practical and you work for a company and you don't understand what are you doing. Yes, it's nice with the new software programs, but if you don't understand accounting, you can't work on the software effectively to be able to read and understand accounting. So all your receipts, whether it's income, via cash, via checks that people send you. It could be transfers that you're receiving, maybe from your own other bank account that you receive in, or transfers from somebody else that's coming to give you money. Could be from overseas as well. And then your deposits. A lot of your deposits will come from the debtors, and I'm going to explain it to you nicely, because now you're seeing this portion and you're saying, but Esther, this is where I get confused, and that's why I'm bringing you back to the bank, because once you know this, man, you're going to be so clever. Nobody will teach you any better, and I had to learn this in my 20s to be able, and it stuck there. Okay, we're looking at the bank now. We're not looking at debtors and we're not looking at creditors, but if you look at there's a debit here for debtors, and there's a debit here for your receipts. Good. You with me? Then you have payments. That is in the bank. And the bank has also got a credit side. Do you see the creditors and the credit side? Okay, don't get confused. I want to break it up for you so you can understand it, because this is where confusion comes in. So in your bank, you have an output side. You all with me? That's everything that you're going to pay for. You're going to pay either by a check. Nowadays they have check cards like a debit card. You have different cards that you use, and you have transfers that you can do. You can do it any other method. You can do it via Forex. It doesn't matter. Forex is income or output. So that is also possible. Forex is just overseas transactions. Okay, there's other ways that you can also do payments. We won't get into it now. You also have your checkbook as well, your credit card as well. I will go into the credit card at a later stage because it has an in and out, but that is a different bank. We're going to work here with a bank, and we're going to call this one, let's make it a savings or a check account. You're not going to work on the credit card just yet. Okay, so we're looking at the bank, and what does the bank say to you? Does it have a debit side? Yes. So there, the bank will have a debit side. These are the transactions you can do. The bank has a credit side. Those are the transactions that you can do. Now, for example, where the problem comes in is when somebody goes to your debtors, that's your customers, they will say, but Esther, I don't understand why when I get money from the bank, the money in the bank says debit, but here I must make it a credit. And remember what I taught you, cross your legs for me again, cross over. The bank has got a debit, it's always on the left hand side if we're looking at a debit. And what is on the right hand side? You need to credit your debtors. I'm just going to go back to this first, making it a little easier for you to understand. If you're not sure how this ledger must balance, because this ledger has two sides. It has a debit and a credit side. Just like you have a debit and a credit on the bank, you have a debit and credit. I'm going to teach you individually with these so that you understand how they fall into this. This is just showing you exactly how this fits together. So that you're able to understand this portion, because this portion seems to always give people a bit of a chaos situation that you don't understand. Okay, so in this ledger, because we say we received cash, and I'm just going to write here, I received cash from Susan. How would I have received it? Remember, it's a debit. So if you always remember your bank sets the stage for accounting. Remember that. And then your journals, I'll tell you something else about journals later. Well, not in this training, at a later stage. But your bank, you must remember, your bank is vitally important. This, you start with your bank and you think, what happened to your bank? Okay? So what happened in your bank, and I'm just showing you, this is what's inside your bank. You have a debit side in your bank and you have a credit side in your bank. What happened in your bank? You received money from Susan. So you put the cash into your bank account, and now where does the other leg go? It must go to the credit side. I'm going to put it here in red. So it crosses over. Let's just go and look at that example. But before I go there, can I show you how to remember debtors and how to remember creditors? it will always start with a debit balance. Debit. You with me? So it always starts with a transaction, which is going to be your customer comes in the door and says, I want to buy an account, because that's what a debtor is. They buy on account. And then they're paid with cash later on, maybe the end of the month. That's what a debtor is. They owe you money. It's your customer. Me. My customer. You with me? Right. That it's your customer. Okay, put yourself in this. This is your bookkeeping. I'm showing it to you, but this is your bookkeeping system that you have to look at. Now, if you look at your creditors journal, it starts with credit. It has to be on the credit side. So it cannot start with a debit. It must start first with a credit. I'm making it blue so that you see first. You first start with this transaction, a debit transaction first, before you can start with your customers come in, you give them an invoice, so it will be a debit. If you are buying from somebody else, first transaction, there will be an invoice. So both of these have invoice systems. That's why it's called a debtor's ledger and a creditor's ledger. For those that don't understand what I'm doing, you need to actually keep on looking at all the videos that I'm going to post for you to help you. And please pass this on to other students that need to know how this works. I'm showing you how the engine works inside accounting so that it's easier to understand. And then we break it down. I'm not going to break it down now. I'm going to take you how it works. So the bank always has a debit side, which is your left-hand side. The bank always has a credit side. Debtors always have a debit side and it always has a credit side. But there's a rule here. Debtors must start with an invoice. Creditors must start with an invoice. Let's take the invoice here. The invoice was made. And which side was it made on? On the debit side. Do you see that? And say the debit was for 1,000 rand. What happens when Susan comes? Don't get confused here. The bank is a debit, so the other leg which you crossed over will be a credit, yes. So, if we look at Susan, she gave cash to pay her full amount off. She paid 1,000 rand. So when she pays it, here's the payment. You with me? She paid 1,000 rand. That's why you have to have a crossover. She couldn't have taken it from the bank, which is a debit, and put it into the debtors as a debit. No, because then she's increasing her invoices and it's wrong. And the right procedure is first an invoice and then a payment. You can't put a payment before you put the invoice because then they are cash customers. You with me? This is on account. This is an account system. This is where everybody makes a mistake. I'm going to write here accounts. This is all your accounts. I've just got one up here. The same with this, accounts. I'm starting at this point because I want you to focus on the bank. If I had to say to you, if you transferred money to Tony and you transferred 500 rand, you wouldn't be able to transfer from here because this is money coming in. Do you see it? It's input. It's money coming in. So you would have on the output side, which is the credit side of your bank. Remember, this is your bank. It's got two sides to it. So you want to transfer money out of your bank because there's now 1,000 rand that you received from Susan, and it was for her account. Okay? If you are going to pay Tony now, you've got 1,000 rand. Oh, I put 100 rand here. Sorry, 1,000 rand. So you've got enough money. You've got 500 rand profit left if you take the one off the other one. You with me? Okay, so now you want to pay Tony. So let's do the same here. Please don't get confused. I'm just going to put the line down like this. So which side would it go on? You're doing a payment. Remember what I said to you, the payment mustn't go before you have an invoice. So what is going to happen here? We are going to have, first, we must have our invoice. So let's go there. The invoice, say now it was for, this is Tony's account. All right. And Tony has bought, you bought, not Tony's account, your account, sorry. You bought at Tony for 1,500 Rand. Now you want to take 500 Rand from your account, you want to transfer it into Tony's bank. So what happens is, Tony will go, remember, this one here, the 1,500 is an invoice. With me? So you're paying 500 Rand to Tony. Here's your 500 Rand. Let's have a look which side it affected it. Once again, cross your legs over. Let's have a look. If your left hand had to pay out money, did it? Did your left hand pay out money? No, it didn't. It was your right hand. It's your credit side that is paying out the money. So what happens to the right hand? It's a credit in the bank. So it will be a debit in Tony's account. And it's in your book system to say, I've only paid Tony 500 Rand, so I owe him 1,000 Rand. Let me go through this briefly with you again so that you can grasp what I'm saying. This is the bank. There's two legs to the bank, debit side, credit side. If you always remember the bank, let's look at it. If you receive money in the bank, which side will your money be in? On the debit side. So obviously, if you received money in, it must go to your debtors, or it goes to a cash sale, or whatever it is for. But we're just going to work on debtors now. So it will go as cash that came in for Susan. If it came in on the debit side, it has to go to the credit side of that account. So your bank is one account. These are all ledger accounts. Your bank is a ledger account. Your debtors is a ledger account. Your creditors is a ledger account. So when you take it from the debit side, you think to yourself, what is my bank doing? Please remember that. What is my bank doing? My bank says there's money in my bank and it's on the debit side, because it's always on the left-hand side on your debit side. Okay, so if it came in from Susan, I must go and I must take it to Susan's account. She's got an account with me. This is my books. She owes me money because it's a debt. So remember, your bank is the most important when you're working with accounting, and then you will breathe much easier. So if you get any questions, like you bought a motor vehicle, no, let's not use motor, let's use something else. You bought stationery, for example. So it's on the credit side. Where will the other side go? You worked in the bank now. It's on your right-hand side here. It's the credit side. Where must it go? It must go to stationery, which is a debit side. So if you know the bank, you know every other account. Okay, water and electricity. We know that we have to pay water and electricity out of the bank. It goes. What is the other account? It was a credit in your bank, so it must be a debit in that account. With me? Okay. Let's take telephone. Paying a telephone. Money goes out of your account. And where's it going to? The other leg is the debit side. That's why all your expenses will be debits, because your bank is a credit. I hope this helps you. Make some comments at the bottom. If you've got any questions, ask me. It'll help me to draft up a training material, whatever you guys want. And yeah, this is just introducing you to basic accounting to make it easier for you to understand. I will work on our input and output and our bank with our nominal accounts in the next one. And then I'll break down debtors and creditors in another recording. Stay focused. Please ring the bell. Please subscribe. And I hope you're going to get further than what you thought you were going to get. Accounting you will always use in business. Wherever you go, you will always use it. Don't put it aside as if you don't need it. Even if it is a bit difficult, it works out much easier if you know what your bank account is. Thank you. Just remember, there is a trick. You will learn that later on in accounting. It's with journals. Remember, there's no bank with journals always. Thank you. Love you, Esther Bardenos. Bye-bye.